After LA Theatre Works' performance of In the Heat of the Night in October 2014, playwright Matt Pelfrey and director Brian Kite joined UCLA's Michael Hackett for a roundtable discussion about adapting the show as an audio drama and its subsequent incarnation as a national tour.
So everybody, I would like to introduce Michael Hackett, chair of the theater department here at UCLA. Our author, Matt Pelfrey. And our director, Brian Kite. So I'm going to hand it over to the three of you, and they will have a little discussion, and then we'll take questions.
Great.
So there you go.
Thank you. And I should also say Professors Pelfrey and Professors Kite, because they teach for us in the theater department in the School of Theater, Film, and Television.
So the moderator is my boss, is what he's saying.
In a way, yes. So Matt, if I could ask you a question, because today in class someone asked me this. What is the original source for In the Heat of the Night? Is it the film script? Is it a novel?
Yeah.
What was it?
It's John Ball's novel is the original source material. And when we got the rights to adapt the book, we were told that we could not use anything that was unique to the film, which is far more famous than the novel is. There are elements of the book that needed to be changed, but we couldn't use any solutions that were pre-existing. So we kind of had to find our kind of own way around certain problems, because the book is fantastic, but there's some stuff that is just a product of its time that for a modern audience, wouldn't quite hold up as well. So it was kind of a challenge to do that. But yeah, it all started with his book.
And then with the screenplay, you had to stay away from scenes that were specifically in the screenplay.
Yes, and things that they emphasized, we felt we might get into trouble because Warner, I forget if it's Warner Brothers or who released the film version, but they had to approve our draft also. Like their lawyers had to look at it. And then the draft I did had to pass muster with the John Ball estate.
Wow.
So there was a bunch of kind of things it had to do. So.
And in fact, in the book, we didn't like the murderer from the book.
Yes.
And we couldn't use the murderer in the movie, who is Ralph, actually, in the movie, but it's because he is, in fact, trying to do it to get money for an abortion. And so Matt came up with turning it into Pete, which actually makes it much more relevant and much more about the thematically relevant for the rest of the play.
And I thought it was really important that, in a way, because Tibbs can come off as almost a Sherlock Holmes level character with his deductions, with the dust and all that stuff, I thought it would be more powerful if you got to see how smart he was and what a great job at detecting he could do, but he was still wrong. That just made the character feel more authentic also. So it was kind of a question of having our cake and eating it too. He got to show off his skills, but in the end, there's still this kind of final twist where he wasn't exactly right, but that's part of the process. So it kind of made him more human, I thought.
So, Brian, this is your third tour you've done, or fourth?
My fourth tour.
So could you discuss a little bit about exactly what that is? Because we didn't know how much we'd see tonight. So basically, we haven't seen the tour, other than apparently some of this will be used, the visual.
Correct.
Or not.
So I want you to feel you got the full show, but you didn't quite get the full show.
Well, we got the full
You got the full show on the acting front, but there are more elements that we use in the tour that we are testing and trying out right here. For example, on the tour itself, we play larger theaters, usually around 2,000-seat houses. So there is a set design that has levels, and I don't just use these mics in the front. I actually use 8 mics total, plus the sound effects and Foley mics. And the characters move from mic to mic to help us move from location to location. We couldn't do that here because the stepping and the walking and everything would be a problem, as well as the microphone height. On the road, we pretend like we're recording, but we're not really recording. Here, we're really recording. So we have to have the actors at the right heights for their mics. They can't move and group in the same way that I do to help tell the story on the tour. The projections, the reason you see them split into 5 pieces like that is it's actually projected onto silk that hangs in the back. And sometimes it's on some of the projections. You saw about 65% of the projections. Sometimes you saw repeats that are not really repeated. The projections will also be more animated in the way you saw, like that opening projection with the wind and the clouds moving over the thing. So it's just a more visual way to tell the story to a larger house, but in my experience doing it, sometimes when you come back here, usually we've done the tour and then come back here to do the recording, it's such almost a relief to come back and have the simplicity of what we get here. Sometimes I wonder if on the tours we do a little too much.
Matt, what do you have to think about when you're adapting for radio? Did you think of anything specific?
We didn't actually, I think, have to change too much. The ending, there's quite a big struggle, and there's the issue of Sam's gun falling.
Yeah, we added some IDs as well. Yeah. IDs is when you say the character's name a lot more in radio than you would normally. It's like, good to see you again, Sam. Who's what? When he gets shot, we have to say, Sam! If you just hear a shot on the radio, you won't know who's being shot. So we've added a lot of IDs throughout, which help tell the story that way.
And the opening scene. He's actually, at the opening scene where he's watching Noreen reveal herself at the window, he's actually not kind of mumbling.
There's just silence there. It's just all visual action.
It's just a visual for the stage, but then we tweaked that a little bit. And then had to
so you can imagine my experience as the director when I said, oh, great, I'm doing this radio play. And I opened the first scene, and there's no dialogue.
No dialogue.
It's 3 pages long, no dialogue.
And my first pass at adding dialogue made him really creepy. So
I said
that kept Av into
total creeper.
Yeah. It's like, Sam's one of the good guys in this. He can't be...
I think there are also things that we don't think about but are actually very important, like the fact that there's certain microphones that can't be used because of the height of the performers. And so there's a little dance that's actually going on to practice the microphones where each person can be or cannot be. So in a way, it's like a chess game, isn't it?
Absolutely, moving them around. And even worse for them is their staging in the tour is totally different. They move to absolutely different mics. So they have both of these going on. And even as I've been rehearsing the last several days, we've been doing one version then the other. It's the only way to keep it in their mind, so that by the time we get on the road and put it in the theater, I didn't want a full 2-week gap or something until we could get back to that staging. So, yeah, there's a lot that goes into that.
I think it's what's exciting about what LA Theater Works has evolved into, because now these 5 performances will be edited into one. Mm-hmm. And then, as Susan said, it's heard all over the country, and it's being heard in China and all sorts of places. And then you can also, it comes as a product. You can buy a CD or you can download it or whatever. You can also listen to it on the radio, of course. So the whole idea of a kind of theater of imagination that's different than we usually see or hear is exciting.
Michael's directed several of these. I don't know, he's not mentioning it. You've directed in-studio ones as well.
Yes.
Which is a totally different experience, right? Do you want to describe this?
Well,
can I be the moderator?
Sure.
Tell us for a moment what it's like in the studio.
But what's interesting in the studio is that they have like a spider web that's on the floor. So
there's one microphone, right?
One microphone, but many, many different places to stand, but it's in a very small area. And you can walk like this and like that or like that, and it's amazing how different it will sound in terms of direction or space. So that's its own interesting thing. Let me ask you, what does this material, how did you respond to it? I mean, you didn't quite live through this period. So
because I'm 22.
Well, I actually lived through this. You were probably 2 or something, Brian, during this. I mean, how do you both respond?
No, it's true. I didn't quite live through this. Michael's right. Well, I think the themes are the same. A really interesting thing that Matt said to me when we were discussing the play and why he doesn't shake his hand at the end, for example. In the movie, he actually shakes his hand, Tibbs and the chief. But Matt wanted it to be more about what he sees as our reality, and that's a world where, as you were writing it, it was actually when Obama was elected, mm-hmm. and there was a feeling of, have we overcome racism? Is that a thing of the past? And what we found actually is he ended up, how did you describe it, with almost everybody, no matter how close they were, against him, or pushing back against him.
Exactly. Everyone is trying to stop him or hindering him from doing his job, even the people who are supposed to be on his side. And so I really identified it with kind of an Obama metaphor. And
it was important that at the end, there was some telling that we've come a long way, but the work is certainly not done.
Exactly.
And I think that's what that moment is. And Gillespie has changed. He's a different man, but he's not cured, if we want to call it that, of what he is. And it's been interesting for us to struggle with this idea of people just having everything they believed and understood shattered. It was important that the racism wasn't, for the characters themselves, when Pete is talking to Sam, it's not about being evil or mean for him. Pete honestly believes that Sam is in danger if he lets himself go over and be closer to Tibbs or try to understand him or get close to him. He's trying to save him and protect him. And looking at that world was very interesting for me now. It's something that's still going on. I mean, Ferguson happening is all about race on our news and in our newspapers, and a chance to look at what's happening in the world around us and know that these are just, this at its core is about people communicating and connecting and trying to understand each other, so that's always relevant.
One of the things that I think is exciting about LA Theater Works is that Susan Lowenberg draws together such fine actors. You have a great cast here. I mean, this is really exciting. And in addition to that, even though I've worked with some of these actors, I'm astonished always watching it from the audience how some of them have to change characters and change voices. I don't know how they keep their heads straight, really. It's fantastic what they're pulling off in this.
And we do a lot. It doesn't happen as much in regular stagings of a play, perhaps, but now I deal with actors, and these guys are great pros who do this all the time, and they say to me, like, you want it a little bit lower? How about a little higher? How about this voice? How about I try this? How about I make them squeaky? How about I make them, and it's on and on. It's like just a catalog I can start to choose. I'll take part of that one and a little bit of that last thing you did, and put it together with a character, and then they create it and still keep the honesty.
So, Matt,
about
you
it.
didn't have to worry about that, did you?
No.
You weren't given a set number of actors that you had to.
No.
So it was
no.
figured out
No,
afterwards.
no.
You figured out how you.
Yeah, there are, in the script, it could be played by, I think it says you can have actors playing double roles, or you could cast them all. And there's two parts of Barfly 1 and Barfly 2 that we had to just cut. I could
hated
not
to
figure
see
out how
them
to do
go.
that. They say things like, yeah, get him! That had to go. We'll put it in later. We'll do it now. Anyone want to do it?
So as a matter of fact, we're going to take some questions from the audience, and we have all of the freshmen from the theater department here today, as well as we have also the MFA actors from the theater department. So if you ask a question, whoever you are, you may get a grade for it. So be careful. So I can't see.
Several of them are enrolled in my
Here.
course right now, and they have not
Yeah,
met
go
me
ahead.
yet,
There's a
interestingly.
question up there.
Good evening, guys. This is really lovely. Thank you very much for making this available to us. My name is Dan. I'm one of the MFA actors. It's a question twofold for the adapter, Mr. Pelfrey, and then Mr. Kite. How do you approach, in the staging of this, how are you going to approach the violence juxtaposed against the levity of the play? Because there's a lot of humor in this, and there's a lot of violence in this, and I wonder what kind of accountability we hold our audience to when we have racially guided violence and then a joke.
A very good question, and I didn't know if people were going to laugh at all, actually. I was relieved to hear some laughs when we started doing this just last night. I think it is a challenge, and it's going to be different depending on where we play. So a lot of Susan said, please tell you about the language issues that we're facing around the country. Some of the presenters at the performing arts centers that we're playing said they don't want the language at all, and we may not say the N-word, which is a huge part of this play and understanding it. And when you feel it in context, it's part of the ugliness of what's happening here. And we're pushing back right now, and I'm not sure where that fight's going to end, but I think it's important to the play, important to the world, and we shouldn't be afraid to tell this story in the way it should be told.
And it's important to show, even just dramatically, the threat Tibbs is under. Even when he's not on stage, you really feel, or at least we tried to really get across, the threat that is just everywhere during this play.
I agree. And the pushback is that I don't care. That word is so ugly. I don't care if you have a black man in this play who represents all the right things that the playwright intends. I don't care. That word is too ugly. It cannot be used in any way. It has to just go away, is the feeling on the other side. And I think there's something to that, too.
Matt Pelfrey, Brian Kite, Susan Lowenberg, and all of LA Theater Works, many congratulations. And it's a pleasure and an honor for us to be able to come. I should say that Susan Lowenberg subsidizes the tickets that the students have this evening, so we should give her a hand as well.